Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third in our VMG Microburst CPD live streams. So let's welcome back to our Microburst CPDs. Oh, he's this side on my screen, but I'm not sure which will be on yours. The wonderful Sid Madge from Me Global, who has been doing a series of Microburst live streams for us on the last Wednesday of every month this year, talking about finding our magic, living our magic. And this month we're going to be, well, Sid is going to be telling us about giving the magic, I do believe. So, Sid, I think I will just hand over to you.
That's really kind. Hannah, thank you very much indeed. Nice to see you all. If I'm a little bit juddery, we are currently in a wonderful facility in East Wales delivering a course, and we're literally in our lunchtime. So if it's a bit jittery or juddery, I'm really, really sorry, but do our best. I will keep as still as I can. So this month we're going to talk about giving our magic, basic housekeeping that we've done every month for the previous sessions. I mean, lovely to see you all again. We are recording this so that others can benefit. Please do enjoy it. Get some really good stuff out of this. Take notes, always good. Make stuff stick. And share the good stuff. You know, even if there's a couple of things that you can kind of pass on to other people, you know, what are they? Do this. I know I mention this every time. What's your checking in score? 0 to 10, 0 rubbish, 10 being absolutely fantastic. Gives you a really good indication of how you're feeling. And do this with your staff members, do this with your team, you know, do this with people that you work with. Just say to them, okay, checking in, how you're doing. Always a really good point of reference as well. Love this as well. And if you can put some of these answers in the chat box, that would be lovely. You know, what one word did you use to describe yourself? And as you know, that's how my journey started with me, or our journey started with me. You know, I asked a lad literally only a few miles from where we are today, you know, what one word, or a class, what one word they would use to describe themselves. And he mentioned weirdo, and that started a wonderful journey into discovering and creating me. So again, really good little read of where people are at, really good. Think of that. What one word you use to describe yourself? Paul's just reminded me that I've got some slides down the left-hand side. Thank you very much for that. I'll go to full screen. And that's why we started Me. I mean, it really is. We work with some amazing organisations, including VMG, who we love to pieces. We love the veterinary world. It was something I wanted to do when I was a young man, but I was told as a student, I was told as a pupil, I was never clever enough to be a vet. I now know that I could have been a vet. Obviously, it would take me a lot longer, I'm sure. But I love the profession. Love the fact that you look after so many wonderful animals around the UK and beyond. We reference a lot of the stuff from amazing books that we've read. We've obviously got our own books that we would love you to read, and I think there's a promotion code that you can use in that. Now, this is hugely important. I say this, and Hannah's most of it kind of nodding, but none of what you're going to hear from me or me individually or anyone is more powerful than what you tell yourselves. Beliefs are choices. We choose to believe the stuff that we do. We really, really do. So when we think of that and think of that as a context, all the information that we get given, whether that's news or films or books or whatever that is, or speeches or talks, we will then take away that meaning and we will create that meaning for ourselves. So it's hugely important you realize that all the stuff you give meaning to is based on, you know, what you decide. None of what you hear from any organization is more important than what you tell yourselves. It really isn't. Because ultimately we ask this brilliant question, which is, well, what does it mean to me? How do I put that into context? You know, what does that, how can that change my life? How can that influence my life? How can I then take that and influence, you know, the lives of other people? And as Hannah so brilliantly said earlier, you know, the first month we talked about finding our magic because we believe that's in every single human being. We then last month talked about living our magic. So how do we live that more every day? And ultimately, you know, this month is about how do we give that? Because if we know what our magic is, if we then live that more, we then feel more philanthropic and certainly more charitable to kind of pass that on to people, you know, every day. You know, and no one is born unhappy. They're really not. You know, whatever situation that we've been in, you know, human beings are wonderfully adaptable. I mean, they really are. They're very creative, incredibly social. And sometimes we just need that little shift in perspective to fall back in love with our own magic, but also to embrace and enhance the magic of others as well. You know, really, really important. You know, what I love about your industry is that you are in the caring profession. But then when I think of, you know, human beings, you know, I think of the business that we're in, it is a caring business. You know, we want to do good, you know, and as vets and as vet practices, you know, even as students, you want to care, you want to help customers, you want to help their animals, but also think about colleagues and the communities that you serve as well. There's a lot of good that we can do. And here is to living that care more every day. And as you know, how we communicate, you know, I love this question, you know, is how do we communicate with more care and kindness? And, you know, and those wonderful unique qualities that makes you, you. And as I say, organizations don't change. We often think that, you know, organizations can change people. They don't. People change people. People care for people. And people care for animals, and also animals care for us too as well. You know, we love this, kind of the whole CPD, which is, it's not only about my personal development, but it's also my professional development. But it's also the practice of practice. You know, the more we learn to do things, the more sometimes we go out of our comfort zone to do different things. You know, the more we can be practicing, you know, kindness and generosity and living the good stuff. You know, we know that we face all the same issues as every industry does, you know, whether it's poor leadership or whether it's heavy workloads or communication, customer expectations, technology, rising costs, it's all there. The landscape, the backdrop is similar to every industry, really. So we are a mirror of our environments, you know, whether that's our home environments, whether that's school environments or education environments, whether that's a professional, you know, environment or even just a social environment. We are a mirror of those things. We really, really are. So what I've done for this month, I've come up with wonderful, I love acronyms, I really do. I love breaking words down and kind of being creative with them. And I've come up with 4 carrots this month and broken care down, Hannah, you love this one, into 4 little lovely words, which is the care of care. And the first one is the C of can. And yes, you can. You know, every single person can care. And the sessions that we're running over the next few days, you know, in East Wales, are for people who are unemployed. Now, these are brilliant people. You know, some of them are in their, you know, not in their 20s yet, some of them in their 60s. So there's a huge, you know, kind of age group. But we all get lost. But we've all got a huge amount of gift inside us. We really, really do, that we can share. You know, and whether that's helping somebody, giving them a hug, or just asking them if they need help or whatever. You know, we think about the language that you're using, and I know that I've mentioned this in the first month in January. There's a brilliant study done in the 80s where they looked at different demographics of the language that parents are using with children. And they found that between kind of lower income and higher income families, basically there was 30 million words more, or 30 million words were used more with kind of higher income families than in lower income families. And they found that at least 50 to 60% of those words were much more positive. So when you think of the basic language that we're using with each other, whether that's in the workplace or the home place or whatever, really think that that has a huge influence and impact, not only on the well-being of ourselves, but also on the well-being of others. You know, and we learn optimism. You know, Martin Seligman's brilliant work in positive psychology taught us that and is teaching us that, is that we learn to be optimistic, but we also learn to be pessimistic too. And as I mentioned at the beginning, no one is born unhappy. We learn that optimism, we learn that bias towards being positive or being negative or whatever. Carol Dweck talked about it, you know, many times, about kind of mindset, growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. So we can learn these things, we really, really can. You know, and again, you know, within the medical world, the wonderful healing powers that placebo have, that whole positive mindset that you can get into, which is I can heal myself, I can make myself better, you know, and then the opposite, which is a nocebo, which is that obviously that we can also do huge amounts of harm. And what's really interesting in some of the research that we've been doing within the medical professions is that when you take, you know, doctors within modern practices, they're saying that at least 80% of illnesses that they're seeing are down to modern lifestyle. Stress, anxiety, depression, all of those things are fueled by modern living and modern lifestyle. You know, we're far too overworked, really. I mean, we really are. So, you know, I know, Hannah, you know this. It's really difficult to keep a balance of, you know, yes, doing your job absolutely to the best of your ability, but also to really looking after yourself too. So when we think about how we're dealing with colleagues, and, we've just done a wonderful timeline exercise with, the group that we're running today, and some of the stories that have come out of those timelines make you cry. They're just beautiful stories of how people have endured huge amounts of trauma and stuff and come through that. But again, we do not know what others are going through. And I think it's really, really important that we make sure that we use the right language, and we use sympathetic and empathic language as well. And the way we talk to each other, as said here, has a huge, huge bearing on how we are with each other. It really, really is. And we don't know what's going on. So really think about the language that we're using. And that's why, the C is can. A is for attitude. I love this. I'm not a mathematician. I love numbers. I love words as well. But this is a great, great little kind of sum that you can do. So if you write the word attitude down, which is obviously on the screen there, and then if you were then to turn that into, a mathematical equation, which is always fun, and then if you look at the numbers on the screen, if you were then to turn each one of those letters into a mathematical kind of sum, how many would attitude kind of add up to? Obviously I can't give you a load of minutes to do it, but it's a really great little thing to do. And Hannah, I'm sure you're writing it down there. I'm sure you're doing the equation, aren't you?
I was just looking, thinking, oh gosh, I hope he's not going to ask me straight away.
No, there's one of them in it. Obviously, don't ask me. It's like, don't ask the person over there. But it's such a wonderful little thing, and it's really interesting, isn't it, when we talk about, when we interview people and we kind of work with people, that attitude's really important, how we turn up every day and what contribution that we're making, to kind of be better human beings and all the rest of it. And obviously the interactions that we have with our customers as well. What attitude am I bringing into my practice? How am I dealing with that, whether I'm on reception or whether I'm at college or wherever I am, or university? What am I bringing this? And I'm going to reveal the answer here. So attitude actually adds up to 100, which is just so lovely. I know, it's all right, Anne. But again, it's just such a lovely thing, isn't it? There's a few words in the English language that do add up to 100. But the thing that I love about this is that actually, I always say this, is that whenever you do something, ask yourself, what percentage am I giving that? Am I turning up 90%? Am I turning 80 or 70 or whatever that is? And then if you're giving less than 100%, ask yourself that question. Why? Where's the other percentage going? And we do this thing, and as I mentioned at the beginning, the whole thing about check-in scores and checking out scores. Again, if you were checking in, say, a 5 or a 6, what would make up that rest of the 10? Where would that be? What do you need to find? An attitude, for me, is everything. It's really, really important. And there is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant short film by Simon Sinek. And I'm not going to play it now, but we will send you the link if you want to, get the link to the film, drop your email, or Hannah will send you the link and you can distribute it, to all the members and stuff. It's a brilliant short film. And basically he talks about one person who works in 2 different hotels. One, he's a barista, and another, he works as another hotel. And he talks about his attitude when he's at work at these 2 particular places. One place he absolutely loves working, and the other place he absolutely does not like working. And it's really interesting how this young man reflects on the management style in the place that he loves working at. Always says to him, so how are you? How are you doing? What do you need? The other place just wants him to do the job. And again, we bring that attitude to work, but we also pass that attitude on to other people. And R is for responsibility. And we are all family. There's 8 billion people on the planet, and there have been 107 or 108 billion people who have gone before us. But we're all related. When you look at the gene pool, if you've ever done that, 1, 2, 3 genetic thing or whatever, we've traced our kind of genes back to where it all originated from. In Africa, we're all out of Africa from somewhere. And it's amazing that we are all family. Human beings, we're all the same. We're really, really not that different. Yes, I might be in a different country. I might have a different skin color to somebody else or whatever, but we're all ultimately family. And I think that it is a responsibility for us all, to look after each other, but also to be responsible for the world that we live in. It's really, really important. And one of my heroes who's long gone is Viktor Frankl. I mentioned a while ago, in another session, his brilliant book, A Man's Search for Meaning. I love this book, absolutely adore this book. And one thing that I love about this book is that he talks about three things. He talks about spirituality. You know, I mean, how many of us actually practice any spiritual stuff? I mean, meditation, going out into nature, taking your shoes and socks off and walking in the sand or walking in the sea, or even walking on the grass. You know, it's wonderful. It really is. Getting that connection back to each other, but also to the things that are around us. You know, that wonderful thing that he said, that we've all got our own freedom, even if we're in prison. And he spent, you know, 4 years in various death camps, you know, in the Second World War. He said we still have that sense of freedom, even if you're incarcerated. Freedom is really important. And he mentioned the last thing, which is a responsibility to ourselves, to each other, and ultimately to the planet. Now, one thing that he said, which I absolutely loved in his book, and he created this thing called logotherapy, which is all around kind of identity and agency and that whole self-belief thing, which is brilliant. But he mentioned this thing about the Statue of Liberty, which is fantastic, isn't it? You know, East Coast of America. I'm sure many of us have only visited it and kind of looked in wonder and awe, or even kind of been inside it. Incredible thing. But what I loved about what he was saying in his book was actually that we need a statue of responsibility on the west coast of America. And this was the artist's impression of what that statue of responsibility would look like. And I actually think that for me, it really brought it home to me that actually, that yes, I like my liberty, I like my freedom, but actually that freedom comes at a cost. It comes at the cost of responsibility. I have a responsibility to people that I work with, that I work for, the customers that we serve, my children, my 3 wonderfully young children, but also to my community as well. And it's how am I showing up in those things as well. And the last thing, the E of care, is around energy. You know, we know that we are matter, physical matter. You know, we're a series of compounds, aren't we, including gold, silver, and kind of bronze. But actually, it's the energy that we bring to that matter which is hugely is important. And this was something that Tony Robbins or Anthony Robbins mentioned, you know, in a number of his sessions, which I really love, is that where our focus goes, our energy flows. You know, now I don't know if you've ever walked down the street and you've seen somebody kind of walking almost towards you and you're kind of thinking, oh, I won't bump into them, but eventually you kind of walk into each other because we're sort of focusing on not doing it. It's the thing that happens. So again, it's really, really important. And the thing is that our lives are controlled by what we focus on. You know, when you look at kind of Seligman's thing about optimism and pessimism, if I feel that the world is a bad place, I'm going to find the evidence for that. If I see that the world is pretty wonderfully opportunistic, there's opportunity in everything that we do, people that we meet and things that we do and things that we see, then obviously that's how I'll, you know, kind of see the world. And that's obviously what I'll find as well. So it's really important that we think about that. I mean, this is an old parable and, you know, it's been said in kind of lots of different things, but I really love this. And I'm going to read this because I really love this one. An old Cherokee is teaching his granddaughter about life. A fight is going on inside me, he said to the boy or girl. It is a terrible fight and it is between 2 wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. He continued, the other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The same fight is going on inside you and inside every other person too. The grandson, granddaughter thought about it for a minute and then asked his grandfather or grandmother, which wolf will win? Now, when I came across this, and you know, it's in one of the books that I wrote, what I love about this is that when you answer this question, which wolf do you think will win, the bad wolf or the good wolf? It's actually the answer is the one we feed. And this is why energy is so important. Emotion is so important. Where am I focusing? What are the things that I'm spending time doing? Like, for instance, with staff reviews, how positive am I being in terms of feedback? How do I view feedback? Do I view it as criticism? Or do I see it as a wonderful opportunity to grow, to adapt, to learn, to do stuff? So again, energy is massively, massively important as well. You know, when you are in the business of care, you really are. You know, if you think about the animals, you think about the customers, if you think about the communities that you serve as well, vet practices, you know, veterinary practices are a huge part. You think about the amount of, you know, animal pet owners not just pet owners, but also livestock, all of the things that you look after. It's massively, massively important. It really, really is. So again, think of that acronym. Think about yes, you can. Think about that attitude. Think about the responsibility that you've got to yourself, to your family, to your friends, to your colleagues, and to your communities. And think about that energy. What is the energy that I'm bringing? What is the energy that I'm sharing with other people? Hugely, hugely important. And think about it for yourself, your colleagues, your customers, and ultimately your community as well. And also, what are you going to do differently, based on this session? Are you going to do anything differently? Any answers in the chat box would be lovely. Hannah, what's this made you think, or has this made you think about something you might do differently?
Yeah, I like the idea of like a statue of responsibility. I like that idea. That kind of resonated, thinking, yeah, absolutely, we can recognize the privileges that we hold, but anybody in obviously the veterinary sector as a whole, but particularly us as VMG and our membership, we do hold positions of responsibility as leaders and managers in our organizations and also in our communities. So that does mean that we have a responsibility to the people that we work with, so our teams, our clients, our wider communities. Yeah, so I think that's what kind of resonated for me, thinking about what that might mean for the way that we do what we do. It's an interesting point.
And I think also, like, the A of care can also be ask. I think one of the greatest gifts that we're given is to ask people, how are you feeling? Are you okay? And again, whether that's a check-in score or one word or whatever that is, whether that's in a meeting. We had a situation this morning where, one of the young ladies was upset about some feedback she got from her school about her son. And one of the people in our session just went and gave her a big hug, sat next to her. And again, hugely, hugely important. It really, really is. I mentioned this before. If you would like a wonderful little booklet about being behind the magic. Oh, hang on. I think I've got a question.
Yeah, we've got just some comments coming in about what we're going to change. So thinking about energy,
yes,
is an interesting one as well, and where your energy goes and how you direct where your energy goes.
Yeah, and also, it's also thinking of the fuel that you use. It's like, so, what is the media I'm consuming? Do I spend loads of time on social media? My energy is finite. We all get the same kind of amount of energy in a day, but what's fueling that? What food? What foods are we eating? We know kind of fizzy drinks full of sugar ain't necessarily good for us. So how much stuff. One of the things I do, Hannah, every morning is literally drink between a half to a pint of water. If you think about it, our brains are 75-80% water. And the thing is, you have to rehydrate that. I think the brain uses over 20% of our energy every day just by processing stuff, just by doing stuff. So again, how do we create that energy? And I always say to people, if a plant starts to wilt, what do? You give it a can of Coke, you give it a drink of water. It's the same with us. It's like whenever I feel my energy starting to kind of wane, I just grab a glass of water. I don't get a fizzy drink because I know that ultimately there's stuff in there that's not necessarily good for me. If you would like the copy of the book that I just mentioned, please scan this QR code in. It's a wonderful little book. It's absolutely for free. There's some amazing stories in there. People like John Wilson, who started Sight Savers International, who was blind at the age, I think he was 12 years old, in a chemistry experiment or a chemistry class. But there's amazing things that people do that go beyond their own magic to help, kind of live and kind of give that, in communities and whatever. There is so much that we can do, and sometimes it just needs somebody to listen, somebody to ask, somebody to give you a hug. The amount of talks that we do, the amount of people that come up at the end and say, I'd just like a hug, please. Why not? They're free. And they make a huge, huge difference. They really, really do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably the books, obviously, but I'll go back to this slide. No one is born unhappy. They're not. They're really, really not. We are amazingly adaptable. If you think of all the things that have been invented in the world, human beings have kind of invented those things, or the man-made or woman-made things. We are incredibly adaptable, in terms of creating vaccines, doing stuff. Amazing. We really, really are. And I think sometimes we lose that kind of reality, that kind of, that essence of magic that we've all got to be amazing people. We really, really do. So there we go. That was March's little care theme.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Sid. Always thought-provoking, always interesting, always full of energy as well. So thank you very much for that. Just a couple of things just to point out to folks who are watching. So Sid is one of our fabulous speakers for VMG Congress in June. So if you would like to hear a little bit more than just a microburst from Sid, he is running a full workshop at our Congress in June. So the link is there. If you haven't yet got your tickets, do sign up. It's going to be a fantastic couple of days with Sid and a whole bunch of other fabulous speakers on all sorts of topics. So we would love to see you there. But apart from that, thank you very much, Sid, for bringing along your energy this afternoon. I hope you have a good rest of your time in Wales. Thanks everybody for joining us. Our next session will be the next last Wednesday of the month. So that will be Wednesday, the 26th of April at 1 o'clock. And we would absolutely love to have you join us for that. But in the meantime, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday afternoon and we will see you next month.
And well done, Stuart. Great checking in score of 9. I love that.
Just checking out the comments.
What would give you that extra 1%? That's what intrigues me. But it's so true though, isn't it, Hannah? It's like, I mean, Paul and I talk about this a lot. I used to have a check-in score of 7, 8. Sometimes it used to be a bit lower, and then I kind of realized. I mean, I'm sure like many people, we've lost many people through the pandemic, and obviously, one thing I realized that actually, if this was my last day here, what would I try and do? I'd try and blow the doors off, obviously, and kind of do amazing things. So I kind of think, well, every day is one opportunity that we have left to do something amazing. So for me, I give myself a 10 every day, and then I have to live that. I have to try and stretch myself to live that 10. And then when I go to bed at night, when I'm doing my kind of gratitude list or whatever, one thing that I do is I say, well, okay, have I delivered that 10, yes or no? And if the answer is no, well, what might I need to do to learn to change, to adapt, to do whatever? And that's why it's really interesting. And Stuart, I'd love to know a glass of rum. I love that. But again, it's like, even though it's like a 1, it's like, what does one need? I mean, people say, don't they, that people who get depressed live much too much in the past, and people who are much too anxious live much too much in the future. And I guess, Eckhart Tolle talks about this, the power of now. It's like, if I cannot make friends with now, if I cannot be a 10 now, what is it that I'm waiting for? I think that's a really good thing to kind of think about, really.
We might have to leave it as that as our parting thought for the afternoon. So give everybody something to ponder over their afternoon cup of coffee. So thanks ever so much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you very much, Sid, for bringing the energy, and we will see you all next month. Bye-bye, folks.